Hey YouTube, it's Kiick. So today I am bringing you a tutorial on how to create your own box art, your own custom box art. So what you're going to need is obviously an empty box, it doesn't matter what kind. Printer paper, and you are going to need to print out the box art that you want. I'm only going to be showing you how to do the front box art, but I will also be having a back to this. It's the same concept, it's the same thing. If you can do the front, you can do the back. You will need scissors. And I use Goof Off. You can use rubbing alcohol. Personally, I like Goof Off a little better. When you use rubbing alcohol, it leaves this kind of weird residue on the plastic. Goof Off doesn't really have that, but Goof Off is a little bit stronger. It might make you cough a little bit. But it's like $4 or $5. I get the spray on stuff. It's like $4 or $5 at Lowe's or Home Depot. So that's what you will need. Now you're going to want to start off by completely taking the back off away from the plastic and removing as much of the original paper, like the backside paper, removing it as much as you can. Now, like I said, I'm going to be doing the back as well, so I'm also going to be removing this. You're going to want to do it for both sides if you do plan on doing a back. So you're going to want to get off as much of it as possible because it will help the glue stick better. It's not so crucial to get it the middle too much. I recommend, at least if you're going to do this and if you want to be lazy about it, just remove the paper from the sides because the glue will be able to stick a little better there. I also forgot to mention that you are going to want to use a glue stick. That's all I use. So after you take off the original box art, you're going to take your custom box art that you're doing and just cut it out. Now, what I do, because sometimes using scissors, you can't get as close as if you were to use an X-Acto knife. I don't know if you can see my desk, it's all cut up. This is from me slicing here. But I just start at the top corner and just cut down. You don't have to get it exactly right across the line. Honestly, you're not gonna notice, nobody will really notice. And what you can do, once you get this glued to the box art, you can trim it up. I'll show you. It's a lot easier once you can get it glued. So just cut one side. And one top. This X-Acto knife isn't very sharp, so it's kind of a pain to do this. Alright, so now that you got one side cut and one top cut, you take the box art, well, the cardboard that you just peeled off, and put glue all over it. Cover it in glue. Then what you're going to want to do is line everything up. Just line the top up that you cut and the side up that you cut. With the glue stick, it does move a little bit. So if you put it on and it's not quite even, you can wiggle it. Be careful, okay, so if you freshly print these, obviously the ink's gonna be wet. I would let it sit for like, I let these sit overnight just because I don't want to smudge them. And if you get glue on your finger and you touch the box art, it will smear. So just make sure you don't have glue on your finger. If you do, wipe it off really good. After you're done cutting this out and gluing it, flip it over. I like to put a piece of paper towel or just something on underneath it because my desk is really cut up and scratched. Sometimes that scratches the box art. So I just put something down and just hang it off the side. And you can use the box kind of like as a tracer. My X-Acto knife isn't very sharp. I gotta put a new blade in. And you just cut along the side. Voila. And sometimes, you know, of course you'll have to like clean it up a little bit. Like I have some pieces hanging. Got a little tiny gnat that keeps flying around and it's annoying me. So let's get this bottom part. And you are going to want to do kind of like around the edges a little bit because that's how the Amiibo boxes are. Like they're not square at the bottom, they're just slightly rounded. So you're just going to want to go with that. You can, if you don't have an X-Acto knife, you can use scissors. It works just as good, except for this middle part that I'm about to show you. You kind of have to use an X-Acto knife for this. I mean, you could try with scissors. I don't see how you would do it, but just like the other stuff, you just trace around, just like this. Just be careful. I have my finger has slid off and like sliced many times. So if you're using an X-Acto knife, just be careful. And then it should just pop right out. You flip it over and you got your box. Well, you got your front box. I'm going to do the back really quick. Like I said, I'm not going to really show you guys how to do that since it's the same concept. So 1 second. Alright, so we got the front and the back done. The next step is the box. Okay, now take everything out that's inside of the Amiibo box, and what I do is I squirt all around and I kind of let it soak for a couple seconds, like 15-20 seconds. I use a lot of Goof Off. Let it soak for a little bit and then take your paper towel and just rub it off. Now you gotta use some, it's gonna take some effort. It's a pain. Now what Goof Off does is Goof Off takes off like adhesives and labels and stuff. It's not the best with paint. Like, as you can tell, like I have to scrub pretty hard to get the ink off. But like I said, I prefer it over rubbing alcohol just because the rubbing alcohol does leave this like cloudy kind of residue. But rubbing alcohol is a little bit easier. It's also cheaper. If you're going to go the rubbing alcohol way, the one that I have found that leaves the less residue is Target's Up and Up brand. So I would go with that if you're going to use rubbing alcohol. But like I said, I prefer Goof Off. You do have to use a little bit more elbow grease to get the ink off, like all that color. But I think it's worth it in the end. it's done, you're going to want to go and just wash all this crap off. I'll be right back. So now that you have it washed out and dried, you want to take the plastic base that the Amiibo is going to go into, and I cut this out. I think it looks better because you don't have the figure on the back showing. Just cut these sides off. Now you're going to want to take the Amiibo that you're putting inside of it. I just want to make sure I have all the dust, anything that's collected on it. Put it in there. Seal that up. You want to make sure that you have it even. Don't forget to put this thing. Don't forget to put this thing back in the bottom. Stick that in the bottom. Securely in there. Slide this in. So now what you got is it half together. So take your box art and lay it down, and then take your glue stick. Oh, make sure this thing's up over everything. Take your glue stick and just put glue all around the edges. Then what you're going to need to do is tilt this up, lay this flat on the table, and just press it against it. Just try to line it up in the middle and press all along the sides to get it nice and tight against the back art. Just let it sit for a little bit. We'll come back to this in about 20 minutes after it's set. Okay, so just for video purposes, I'm not going to wait the 20 minutes, but this is what it should look like when you are done. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment. I will try to answer all of you guys back as quickly as I possibly can. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up.